He was the most feared man in Chicago, a ghost in a tailored suit, a name whispered in back rooms where deals were sealed with blood. But when a terrified college student mistook him for her hired protection and begged him to save her from men he himself had sent, something inside Vincent Caruso cracked open. In that moment, watching her cling to the very danger she was running from, he made a choice that would unravel his empire. He would become the lie she believed, even if it cost him everything he'd built. If you're listening to this story, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and tell me in the comments what part of the world you're listening from. Vincent Caruso stood at the floor-to-ceiling window of his penthouse office on North Wacker Drive, watching the October rain streak down the glass like veins of mercury. Below, Chicago's Loop pulsed with evening traffic, headlights blurring into ribbons of gold and red. The city looked clean from up here, almost innocent. He knew better. Behind him, the office was a study in controlled power, dark mahogany, leather that smelled of money, and silence thick enough to suffocate lesser men. On his desk sat a single tumbler of whiskey, untouched, and a manila folder he'd been avoiding for the better part of an hour. Vincent was 42, though most people guessed younger. His dark hair was threaded with just enough silver to suggest authority rather than age, swept back from a face that could have belonged to a corporate lawyer or a senator. Sharp jaw, straight nose, eyes the color of slate that revealed nothing. He wore his power the way other men wore cologne, subtly, but unmistakably. Tonight, it was a charcoal Tom Ford suit, no tie, the top button of his white shirt undone in the only concession to comfort he allowed himself. The door opened without a knock. Only one person had that privilege. The Castellano shipment cleared customs, Marco said, crossing the room with the efficient grace of a man who'd spent 20 years as Vincent's right hand. He was shorter, stockier, with the kind of face that looked friendly until you noticed his eyes never smiled. But we've got a problem with the South Side distribution. Vincent didn't turn from the window. Define problem. 3 of our runners got picked up last night. Not by CPD, by someone else. They were released this morning with a message. Marco paused, and Vincent heard the hesitation. They said to tell you the old agreements are void, that there's a new player who wants to renegotiate terms. Now Vincent turned, and the temperature in the room seemed to drop 5 degrees. Names? They don't have any. Whoever grabbed them wore masks, spoke through voice modulators. Professional operation. Marco set a folder on the desk beside the untouched whiskey. But they left this. Vincent opened it. Inside was a single photograph, grainy, taken from a distance, of him leaving his favorite restaurant in River North. Circled in red marker, the message was clear. We can reach you. For a long moment, Vincent studied the photograph with the same expression he might give a mildly interesting chess problem. Then he closed the folder and looked at Marco. Increase security on the primary routes. I want eyes on every corner from Bridgeport to Inglewood, and find out who's stupid enough to think they can threaten me in my own city. Already on it. Marco hesitated again, and Vincent raised an eyebrow. There's something else. Your sister called. 3rd time this week. Vincent's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. Tell her I'm busy. I did. She said to remind you that Sunday dinners aren't optional, and if you miss another one, she's coming here herself, despite everything. The threat, the rain, the weight of an empire built on blood and compromise. Vincent felt the corner of his mouth twitch. Angela was the only person alive who could make him feel like a scolded child, and she wielded that power with surgical precision. She didn't know what he really did, thought he was just a successful import-export businessman, and he intended to keep it that way. She was a nurse at Northwestern Memorial, saved lives while he orchestrated their ends, and the irony wasn't lost on him. Tell her I'll be there, he said finally. Marco nodded and turned to leave, then paused at the door. Boss, this new player, whoever they are, they're not following the usual patterns. No demands yet, no territory grabs, just watching. It feels wrong. Vincent picked up the whiskey, finally, and took a slow sip. The burn was familiar, grounding. Everything feels wrong before it becomes clear. Find out what they want. Everyone wants something. When Marco left, Vincent returned to the window. The rain was falling harder now, turning the city below into an impressionist painting of light and shadow. He'd built this empire from nothing, taken over his father's struggling crew when he was 25, and turned it into the most powerful organization in the Midwest. He'd done things that would have broken other men, made choices that haunted the spaces between sleep and waking. But he'd also created order in chaos, protected his people, maintained a code even in a world without rules. The photograph bothered him more than he'd let Marco see, not because of the threat. Threats were currency in his world, but because of the timing. For months now, he'd felt something shifting, like tectonic plates grinding beneath the surface of his carefully constructed life. Small things, shipments arriving late, informants going silent, old allies becoming evasive. Nothing concrete enough to act on, but enough to make his instincts scream. He thought about his father, dead 15 years now, who used to say that power was like holding a wolf by the ears. You couldn't let go, but you couldn't hold on forever either. Vincent had always dismissed it as the rambling of a man who'd lost his edge. Now, standing in his tower above the city he controlled, he wondered if the old man had been wiser than he'd given him credit for. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. The girl knows something she shouldn't. Handle it, or we will. Vincent stared at the message, his mind already racing through possibilities. What girl? What did she know? And more importantly, who was we? Before he could respond, another text arrived. This one included an address, a building near DePaul University's Lincoln Park campus, and a name, Lily Morrison. He didn't recognize either. Vincent made a call. I need everything on a Lily Morrison, college-aged, probably a student at DePaul. 10 minutes. Then he grabbed his coat, a black cashmere overcoat that cost more than most people's monthly rent, and headed for the private elevator. Marco appeared from nowhere, as he always did. Where are we going? Lincoln Park. And bring Sal and Tony. Quiet approach. The drive took 20 minutes through rain-slicked streets. Vincent sat in the back of the black Escalade, reading the file his tech team had compiled with frightening efficiency. Lily Morrison, 22, senior at DePaul studying journalism. Dean's List, scholarship student, worked part-time at a coffee shop in Lakeview. No criminal record, no obvious connections to his world. Except, Vincent's eyes narrowed as he read further. 3 weeks ago, she'd published an article in the student newspaper about gentrification in Pilsen, interviewing residents who'd been displaced by new development. One of those developments was owned by a shell company that, if you dug deep enough through enough layers, eventually traced back to Vincent's organization. It was clean, legal, the kind of legitimate business he'd been building to eventually transition away from the darker aspects of his empire. But if someone was trying to expose those connections, she's a reporter, Marco said from the front seat, reading his own copy of the file, digging into things she shouldn't. She's a college student writing puff pieces, Vincent corrected. Someone's using her, or someone thinks she's a threat. Either way, we need to know which. They pulled up to a modest apartment building on a tree-lined street where students and young professionals lived in uneasy coexistence. Vincent could see the appeal, close to campus, far enough from the loop to feel like a neighborhood. The rain had softened to a drizzle, and the streetlights cast everything in an amber glow that reminded him of old photographs. Wait here, Vincent said, stepping out of the vehicle. I'll handle this myself. Boss? Marco started to protest. If she's just a student who got unlucky, I'm not sending 3 men in suits to terrify her. If she's something else, I'll know in 5 minutes. Vincent's tone left no room for argument. He crossed the street, his shoes clicking against wet pavement, and was reaching for the building's entrance when the door burst open and a young woman stumbled out, nearly colliding with him. She was small, maybe 5'4", with honey blonde hair plastered to her face by rain, and eyes so wide with terror they seemed to take up half her face. She wore jeans and an oversized DePaul hoodie, and she was shaking so hard Vincent could see it even in the dim light. Please, she gasped, grabbing his arm with both hands. Please, you have to help me. They're coming. They're right behind me, and I can't. Her voice broke into a sob. Vincent's mind processed several things at once. Her genuine fear, the way she'd grabbed him without hesitation, the fact that she'd said they're coming in a building he'd just arrived at. He glanced past her through the still open door and saw shadows moving on the second-floor landing. Who's coming? He asked, his voice calm, almost gentle. I don't know. Men. They broke into my apartment. They were looking for something, and I ran, and... She looked up at him then, really looked at him, and something like hope flooded her face. You're here. Oh, thank God you're here. The agency said you'd meet me outside. I thought I'd have to... Vincent understood a split second before she finished. I thought I'd have to face them alone. But you're my bodyguard, right? Please tell me you're my bodyguard. Time seemed to slow. Vincent Caruso, who'd built an empire on reading people and situations in fractions of seconds, saw the entire picture crystallize. This terrified girl, the men in her apartment who were almost certainly his own people following up on the threat, and her desperate, mistaken belief that he was her salvation rather than her doom. He could correct her. Should correct her. Could call off his men with a single word and find out what the hell was going on. But then he saw it, the way she was looking at him. Not with the careful fear people usually showed when they figured out who he really was, but with pure, desperate trust. Like he was a hero from one of the stories his sister used to read to him when they were kids, before the world taught him that heroes were just villains who hadn't been tested yet. And something in Vincent Caruso, something he'd thought died years ago in a warehouse on the south side, where he'd made his first kill, stirred to life. Yes, he heard himself say, I'm your bodyguard. The lie tasted like rain and redemption. Lily Morrison sagged against him in relief, and Vincent wrapped one arm around her shoulders, protective, professional, while his other hand moved to the phone in his pocket. He typed a quick message to Marco. Stand down. Extract the team from the building. Now, no questions. Behind them, he heard footsteps on the stairs. His men, coming to finish whatever job they'd been sent to do. Vincent turned, keeping Lily tucked against his side, and made eye contact with Tony as the man emerged from the building. Tony froze, confusion flickering across his face as he took in the scene. His boss, holding the target, looking at him with an expression that promised swift and terrible consequences if he said the wrong thing. Wrong apartment, Vincent said, his voice carrying the weight of absolute authority. You're looking for 3C. This is 2B. Tony was smart enough to catch on immediately. Right. Sorry for the confusion, miss. He nodded to Lily, then disappeared back into the building, already texting the others. Vincent felt Lily trembling against him. Come on, he said softly. Let's get you somewhere safe. He guided her to the escalade, where Marco had already opened the back door, his face a mask of professional neutrality that Vincent knew hid 1,000 questions. Lily climbed in, and Vincent followed, putting himself between her and the window. As the vehicle pulled away from the curb, Vincent watched the building recede in the side mirror. He'd just made a choice that violated every rule he'd ever set for himself, every lesson his father had taught him about keeping business and emotion separate. He'd just chosen to protect the very person he'd been sent to eliminate, or at least investigate. He'd lied to his own men, compromised an operation, and appointed himself guardian to a girl who had no idea she was sitting next to the most dangerous man in Chicago. The rain started again, harder this time, drumming against the roof like 1,000 tiny warnings. Vincent Caruso had built his empire on certainty, on always being 3 steps ahead, on never letting emotion cloud judgment. But as he looked at Lily Morrison, huddled in the corner of the seat, trying to stop shaking, looking at him like he was her salvation, he realized he'd just stepped off a cliff with no idea where he'd land. And for the first time in 20 years, he didn't care. What's your name? Lily asked quietly, her voice still shaky but stronger now. Vincent hesitated for just a fraction of a second. Then he smiled, a real smile, not the calculated expression he usually wore, and said, Michael. My name is Michael. Another lie. But this one felt like the truth he'd been waiting his whole life to tell. The safe house was in Oak Park, a quiet suburb west of the city where Frank Lloyd Wright homes sat like architectural prayers among tree-lined streets. Vincent owned the property through so many shell companies even he sometimes forgot the paper trail. It was a modest 2-story craftsman, unremarkable except for the reinforced doors, bulletproof windows, and security system that would make a paranoid dictator jealous. Lily had fallen asleep in the car, her head tilted against the window, exhaustion finally overwhelming adrenaline. Vincent had watched her in the reflection, the way her breathing slowly evened out, how her fingers gradually unclenched from the death grip she'd had on her phone. She looked younger in sleep, vulnerable in a way that made something twist uncomfortably in his chest. Marco pulled into the detached garage, and Vincent gently touched Lily's shoulder. We're here. She startled awake, disoriented, and for a moment fear flashed across her face before she remembered where she was. Sorry, I didn't mean to. You're exhausted, Vincent said. Come on, let's get you inside. The house was furnished but impersonal. Comfortable couch, functional kitchen. Nothing that would tell you who owned it or what it was really used for. Vincent had Marco do a quick sweep while he got Lily settled on the couch with a blanket and a glass of water. "I should call the police," Lily said, but her voice lacked conviction. She was staring at her phone like it might bite her. "Did you get a good look at the men in your apartment?" Vincent asked, sitting in the chair across from her. He'd removed his overcoat, but kept his suit jacket on, maintaining the professional distance a bodyguard would keep. She shook her head. "It happened so fast. I was coming home from the library, and when I opened my door, I heard them inside, going through my things. I didn't even think. I just ran." She looked up at him, and he saw the moment the shock started wearing off and reality set in. "Who were they? Why would anyone break into my apartment? I don't have anything valuable, I'm just a student, "The article you wrote," Vincent interrupted gently, "about the Pilsen development. Tell me about that." Lily blinked, surprised. "How did you—" Then understanding dawned. "The agency briefed you, of course." She pulled the blanket tighter around her shoulders. "It was just a piece for the student paper. I interviewed some families who were being displaced, talked about how gentrification was changing the neighborhood. It's not like it was investigative journalism or anything. But you were digging into who owned the development company," Vincent said. "It wasn't a question." "I tried," Lily admitted, "but I hit a wall. The ownership was buried under so many corporate layers I couldn't figure out who was really behind it. I mentioned that in the article, that the lack of transparency was part of the problem." She paused, her eyes widening. "You think that's why someone broke into my apartment? Because of a student newspaper article that maybe 200 people read?" Vincent leaned forward, elbows on his knees, his expression serious. "Lily, I need you to think carefully. In the last few weeks, has anyone approached you about that article, asked you questions, wanted to know what else you'd found?" She started to shake her head, then stopped. Okay, this is probably nothing, but there was a guy at the coffee shop where I work. He came in a few times, always sat at the counter, always tried to chat with me. He asked about school, what I was studying. I mentioned the article once, and he seemed really interested. Wanted to know if I was going to do more investigative pieces. Describe him? Tall? Maybe 6 feet. Dark hair, kind of forgettable face. He wore nice clothes, like business casual. Always paid cash. Lily frowned. "You think he was, what, watching me?" Vincent's mind was already working through the implications. Someone had been monitoring Lily, probably trying to figure out how much she knew or could find out. The break-in tonight wasn't random. It was either a search for information or a warning, or both. "I think," Vincent said carefully, "that you stumbled into something bigger than a student article, and I think someone wants to make sure you don't dig any deeper." Lily's face went pale. "But I wasn't going to dig deeper. I'm a journalism student, not an investigative reporter. I have finals in 3 weeks and a thesis to finish. Her voice cracked. "I don't understand why this is happening." Vincent wanted to tell her the truth. That she was a loose end, a potential problem, that in his world people disappeared for less, that the men in her apartment tonight had probably been sent to scare her, or worse, that he was the reason she was in danger in the first place. Instead, he said, "That's why you hired protection, and I'm very good at my job." The lie was getting easier each time he told it. Marco appeared in the doorway and Vincent stood. "Stay here," he told Lily. "I need to make some calls, figure out our next move. You're safe here. The house is secure, and Marco will be right outside. Try to get some rest." "Wait," Lily said as he turned to leave. I didn't actually hire you. I called the agency yesterday, but they said they couldn't send anyone until next week. When I saw you outside my building, I just assumed." She trailed off, confusion and fear warring on her face. "Who sent you?" Vincent's mind raced. This was the moment where the lie could unravel, where she'd realize something didn't add up. He could see her working through it. The journalist's instinct to question, to verify. He made a decision. "Your father," he said quietly. "He contacted my firm directly, said it was urgent. He didn't want to wait for the agency." Lily's expression shifted through several emotions. Surprise, confusion, and then something that looked like pain. "My father? But we haven't spoken in 2 years. He doesn't even know I'm in Chicago." Vincent filed that information away. "He knows now. And whatever your relationship is, he cares enough to make sure you're protected." He softened his voice. "Sometimes the people who seem the most distant are the ones who worry the most." It was manipulation, pure and simple, playing on her emotions to reinforce the lie. Vincent hated himself for it even as he watched it work, saw her eyes get glassy. saw her swallow hard and nod. "Okay," she whispered. "Okay." Vincent left her there and joined Marco in the kitchen. His second-in-command was leaning against the counter, arms crossed, his expression unreadable. "You want to tell me what the hell is going on?" Marco asked quietly. "Because from where I'm standing, you just compromised an operation, pulled our team out mid-job and brought a target to a safe house. Our safe house." "She's not a target," Vincent said. "The message said—" "I know what the message said, and I want to know who sent it." Vincent pulled out his phone, scrolling through the threatening texts. "This whole thing feels wrong. We don't threaten college students over newspaper articles. That's not how we operate. So you think someone's setting us up, using the girl to get to you? Maybe. Or maybe someone's trying to force my hand, make me do something that exposes us." Vincent set his phone down. "Either way, she's safer with me than out there. If whoever sent those texts thinks I've handled the situation, they'll back off, and we buy time to figure out what's really going on." Marco studied him for a long moment. "You're playing a dangerous game, boss. She thinks you're her bodyguard. What happens when she finds out the truth?" "She won't." "Vincent, she won't," Vincent repeated, and there was steel in his voice now. "I'll keep her safe, figure out who's behind this, and then I'll make sure she can go back to her life without ever knowing how close she came to—" He didn't finish the sentence. Marco sighed. "You know I've got your back, whatever you decide. But this isn't like you. You don't do impulsive. You don't do emotional. And you definitely don't do rescue missions for civilians." Vincent looked through the doorway at Lily, who was curled up on the couch, staring at nothing. "Maybe that's the problem," he said quietly. He spent the next hour making calls, pulling strings, gathering information. His tech team traced the threatening text to a burner phone. No surprise there. But they also found something interesting. The phone had pinged off a cell tower near O'Hare Airport 3 hours before the first message was sent. Someone had just arrived in Chicago. His contacts in the police department confirmed that no break-in had been reported at Lily's apartment building, which meant either his men had been incredibly discreet or someone had cleaned up after them. Either way, it suggested a level of coordination that made Vincent's instincts scream. By midnight, he had more questions than answers, but he also had a plan. He found Lily exactly where he'd left her, though she'd pulled her knees up to her chest and wrapped the blanket around herself like armor. She looked up when he entered, and he saw she'd been crying. "Hey," he said softly, sitting down in the chair again. "You okay?" "I called my dad," she said, her voice thick. He didn't answer. "I left a message, thanking him for sending you. I don't know if he'll call back. We didn't part on good terms." Vincent felt the weight of his lie settle heavier on his shoulders. "What happened, if you don't mind me asking?" Lily was quiet for a moment, then shrugged. "He wanted me to go to law school, follow in his footsteps. He's a corporate attorney in Boston, very successful. Very disappointed that his daughter wanted to be a journalist instead. We had a fight when I told him I was transferring to DePaul. He said I was wasting my potential, that I'd never make anything of myself writing fluff pieces for newspapers nobody reads." She laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Guess he was right about the fluff pieces." "He was wrong," Vincent said firmly. "You wrote something that made people uncomfortable, asked questions they didn't want asked. That's not fluff. That's exactly what journalism is supposed to be." She looked at him with surprise, and something else. Gratitude, maybe, or the beginning of trust. "Thank you for saying that, and for," she gestured vaguely, "for all of this. I know it's your job, but still, thank you." Vincent nodded, not trusting himself to speak. Every word of gratitude was another brick in the wall of lies he was building between them. "You should get some sleep," he said finally. "The bedroom upstairs is secure. I'll be down here if you need anything." Lily stood, still wrapped in the blanket, and hesitated. "Michael, can I ask you something?" "Of course. Have you ever protected someone who didn't deserve it? Someone who was, I don't know, guilty of something, but you had to keep them safe anyway?" The question hit closer to home than she could possibly know. Vincent thought about all the people he'd protected over the years. Criminals, killers, men who deserved prison or worse. He thought about himself and whether he deserved the redemption he was suddenly, desperately craving. "Everyone deserves protection," he said finally. "Everyone deserves a chance to be better than their worst moment." Lily smiled. Small, sad, but genuine. "I hope you're right." She went upstairs, and Vincent heard the bedroom door close. He sat in the dark living room, listening to the house settle around him, and wondered what the hell he was doing. His phone buzzed. Another text from the unknown number. Is it done? Vincent stared at the message for a long time. Then he typed back, yes, she won't be a problem. The response came immediately. Good. We'll be in touch. Vincent deleted the conversation and stood, walking to the window. Outside, Oak Park slept peacefully, unaware that in this unremarkable house, one of Chicago's most powerful criminals had just committed himself to protecting a girl who represented everything he'd spent his life destroying. Innocence, idealism, hope. Upstairs, he heard Lily moving around, getting ready for bed. He thought about Marco's question. What happens when she finds out the truth? The answer was simple and terrifying. She couldn't. Because if Lily Morrison ever learned that her bodyguard was actually the man who'd sent people to threaten her in the first place, it wouldn't just destroy the fragile trust between them. It would destroy the last good thing Vincent Caruso had ever tried to do. He pulled out his phone and made one more call. Angela, it's me. I need a favor, and I need you not to ask questions. His sister's voice was warm, concerned. Vincent, what's wrong? Nothing's wrong, I need you to check on someone for me. A patient, maybe, or someone who might come into the ER. Her name is Lily Morrison. Is she in danger? Vincent looked up at the ceiling, toward the room where Lily was trying to sleep. Not anymore, he said. Not if I can help it. When he hung up, he realized he'd just involved his sister, the one pure thing in his life, in his web of lies. Another compromise, another step away from the man he'd been, and toward something he couldn't quite name. Outside, the rain had stopped, and the sky was beginning to lighten with the promise of dawn. Vincent Caruso, who'd built an empire on darkness, watched the sunrise, and wondered if redemption was possible for men like him, or if he was just trading one kind of damnation for another. The morning came too quickly. Vincent had spent the night in the chair, dozing fitfully, his hand never far from the gun holstered at his side. Old habits. He'd learned long ago that the hours between 3 and 5 a.m. were when most attacks happened, when guards were tired, when targets were deepest in sleep, when the world was at its most vulnerable. But no attack came, just the quiet sounds of an Oak Park morning, birds, distant traffic, the hum of the refrigerator. Lily appeared at the top of the stairs around 7, wearing the same clothes from last night, her hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. She looked young and exhausted and achingly normal. Morning, she said quietly. I hope it's okay. I found a toothbrush in the bathroom cabinet. Everything in this house is for you, Vincent said, standing and stretching muscles that had gone stiff from the uncomfortable chair. There should be some clothes in the bedroom closet too. Previous client left them. Might not be your style, but they'll fit. It was another lie. Vincent had sent Marco out at 6 a.m. to buy clothes in Lily's size. Jeans, sweaters, basics. The tags were already removed, the clothes already hanging in the closet like they'd been there for months. Thank you. Lily came down the stairs, wrapping her arms around herself. I don't suppose there's coffee? I'll make some. Vincent moved to the kitchen, grateful for something to do with his hands. How'd you sleep? Better than I expected, though I kept waking up thinking I heard something. She sat at the small kitchen table, watching him measure coffee grounds. Do you ever get used to it? The paranoia? Vincent paused, then continued with the coffee maker. It's not paranoia if they're really after you, and you don't get used to it. You just learn to live with it, to trust your instincts. Is that what you do? Trust your instincts? Always. He turned to face her, leaning against the counter. My instincts have kept me alive for a long time. How long have you been doing this? The bodyguard thing? Vincent had prepared for these questions, had built a backstory during the long night. 15 years. Started in the military, then private security, now freelance. I work for a firm that handles high-risk cases. Have you ever lost someone? Someone you were protecting? The question hit harder than she intended. Vincent thought about all the people he'd lost over the years. Not clients, but soldiers in his organization. Men who trusted him, followed him, died because of decisions he'd made. He thought about Tommy Rizzo, who'd taken a bullet meant for Vincent in a warehouse shootout 5 years ago. About Maria Santos, an accountant who'd seen too much and paid the price before Vincent could get her to safety. Yes, he said quietly. I've lost people. Lily's expression softened. I'm sorry. That must be hard, carrying that. It's the job. Vincent poured 2 cups of coffee, brought them to the table. But I don't plan on losing you, so we need to talk about next steps. Okay. Lily wrapped her hands around the mug, absorbing its warmth. What do we do? First, you don't go back to your apartment. Not until we know who was there and what they wanted. Second, you don't go to classes or work. Anywhere you'd normally be. We need to make you invisible for a few days while I figure out who's targeting you. But I have finals coming up. And my job, Lily. Vincent's voice was gentle but firm. Someone broke into your home. They might have been looking for information, or they might have been planning to hurt you. Either way, your normal life is on hold until we neutralize the threat. She looked down at her coffee, and he saw her hands were shaking slightly. This doesn't feel real. Yesterday I was worried about my thesis deadline, and now I'm hiding in a safe house because someone wants to… What? Kill me? Over a newspaper article? I don't think they want to kill you, Vincent said, though he wasn't entirely sure that was true. I think they want to scare you. Make sure you stop digging into things they want kept hidden. Well, it worked. I'm terrified. Lily looked up at him, and there were tears in her eyes. I just wanted to tell a story, to give those families a voice. I didn't think… You didn't do anything wrong, Vincent interrupted. You asked questions. That's what journalists do. The people who broke into your apartment, they're the ones in the wrong. Remember that. She nodded, wiping at her eyes. So what now? We just hide here until they give up? No. Now I go on offense. Vincent pulled out his phone, showing her the screen. I'm going to find out who's behind this. But I need you to stay here. Stay safe. Marco will be with you. He's my partner. You can trust him completely. Where are you going? To ask some questions. Shake some trees. See what falls out. Vincent stood, draining his coffee. I'll be back by tonight. Don't answer the door for anyone but me or Marco. Don't use your phone except for emergencies. And if anything feels wrong, anything at all, you call me immediately. He wrote his number on a piece of paper, slid it across the table. Lily took it, her fingers brushing his for just a moment. Michael? She looked up at him, and there was something in her expression that made Vincent's chest tighten. Be careful, please. Always am, he said, and left before she could see the guilt on his face. Marco was waiting in the garage, leaning against the Escalade. Where to, boss? The Pilsen development. I want to see it for myself. Vincent climbed into the passenger seat, a rare concession that told Marco how seriously he was taking this. And then we're going to have a conversation with whoever's been watching Lily. The drive back into the city took 30 minutes. Vincent spent it on the phone, calling in favors, gathering intelligence. By the time they reached Pilsen, a neighborhood on the Lower West Side that had been predominantly Mexican-American for decades, he had a clearer picture. The development was called Heritage Lofts, a name that managed to be both ironic and insulting. It was a modern glass and steel structure that stood out like a sore thumb among the colorful murals and traditional buildings that defined Pilsen. Vincent's organization owned it through a shell company called Midwest Property Development, which was owned by another shell company, which was owned by another, in a chain so complex even the IRS would have trouble following it. He'd approved the purchase 2 years ago as part of his legitimate business expansion. The building was legal, the tenants were paying market rate, and on paper, everything was clean. But he'd never actually visited the site, never seen what his money had displaced. Now, standing across the street, he saw what Lily had seen, a monument to gentrification, to the slow erasure of a community's identity in the name of profit. The building was beautiful in a cold, corporate way. It was also completely out of place, a symbol of everything wrong with the way money moved through cities, pushing out the people who'd built neighborhoods in favor of those who could afford to consume them. Boss? Marco's voice pulled him back. You okay? Fine. Vincent turned away from the building. I want to know everyone who's been asking questions about this place in the last month. Investors, reporters, city officials, anyone who's shown unusual interest. You think someone's using the development to get to you? I think someone's using Lily to get to me. The development is just the excuse. Vincent started walking, Marco falling into step beside him. Whoever sent those texts knew about the article before I did. They were already watching her, already planning something. The question is why. They spent the next hour canvassing the neighborhood, talking to shop owners and residents. Vincent had a gift for making people comfortable, for asking questions that didn't feel like interrogations. By the time they left, he had 3 new pieces of information. 1. A man matching the description Lily had given, tall, dark hair, forgettable face, had been asking questions about the development for the past 2 weeks, claiming to be a journalist. 2. The same man had been seen taking photographs of the building, particularly of the security cameras and entry points. 3. He'd been driving a black sedan with rental plates. Vincent made a call. I need you to pull rental records for the past month. Black sedans, male drivers, pickup location near O'Hare. He listened for a moment. Yes, I know it's a lot of data. That's why I pay you the obscene amount of money I pay you. Call me when you have something. They were heading back to the car when Vincent's phone rang. Unknown number. He answered, already knowing what he'd hear. Mr. Caruso. The voice was male, filtered through a modulator that made it sound mechanical. I hope you've been taking our messages seriously. Vincent stopped walking, his expression going cold. Who is this? Someone who knows what you're worth, what your empire is worth, and what you'd pay to keep it intact. If this is about money, it's not about money. It's about respect, about understanding that Chicago is changing, and you need to change with it. A pause. The girl was a test, to see if you'd follow instructions. You passed. Now we have a real job for you. Vincent's mind was racing. This wasn't a rival organization. The language was wrong, the approach too theatrical. This was someone new, someone who didn't understand how things worked, which made them either very stupid or very dangerous. I don't take jobs from people I don't know, Vincent said carefully. You will, because if you don't, we'll make sure everyone knows about your little property development scheme, about how Vincent Caruso, the great protector of Chicago, has been displacing families to line his pockets. We'll make sure it's front-page news, and we'll make sure the girl who wrote the original story gets all the credit for exposing you. There it was, the real threat. Not violence, but exposure. The kind of publicity that would bring federal investigators, that would unravel years of careful construction, that would destroy the legitimate empire he'd been building to eventually leave the criminal world behind. What do you want? Vincent asked. We'll be in touch with details, but for now consider this a courtesy call. Keep the girl close, keep her quiet, and wait for our instructions. The line went dead. Vincent stood on the sidewalk in Pilsen, surrounded by the sounds of a neighborhood going about its day, and felt the walls closing in. Whoever was behind this had done their homework. They knew about his business, his vulnerabilities, his desire to go legitimate, and they were using Lily as leverage, not to hurt her, but to control him. The irony wasn't lost on him. He'd taken Lily to protect her, to save her from a threat he'd thought was coming from his world. Instead, he'd walked right into a trap, and now she was the chain binding him to whoever was pulling the strings. Boss? Marco was watching him with concern. What did they say? They want me to wait for instructions, to keep Lily close and quiet. Vincent started walking again, his jaw tight. They're using her as insurance. So what do we do? Vincent was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, we find out who they are, and we end this before Lily becomes collateral damage. They drove back to Oak Park in silence. Vincent's mind was working through scenarios, calculating risks, trying to find an angle he could exploit, but every path led back to the same problem. As long as Lily was in danger, he was compromised. And as long as he was compromised, his entire organization was vulnerable. When they pulled into the garage, Vincent sat for a moment before getting out. Marco, if this goes sideways, if they come after the organization, I want you to take over. Clean house, protect our people, and get out of anything that could bring heat. Vincent, I'm serious. I got us into this. I won't let everyone else pay for my mistakes. Marco studied him for a long moment. You care about her, the girl. It wasn't a question. Vincent didn't bother denying it. She reminds me that there's still something worth protecting in this world, something that isn't about power or money or survival. That's dangerous, boss. Caring about someone in our line of work. I know. Vincent opened the door. But maybe that's the point. Maybe we're supposed to care, even when it's dangerous, especially when it's dangerous. Inside, he found Lily curled up on the couch with a book, one of the paperbacks that had been on the shelf. She looked up when he entered, and relief flooded her face. You're back. I was starting to worry. Told you I would be. Vincent sat down in his usual chair, suddenly exhausted. How was your day? Weird. Quiet. Marco made lunch. He's actually a pretty good cook. We talked about baseball. She set the book aside. Did you find anything? About who broke into my apartment? Vincent hesitated, then decided on a version of the truth. I found out that someone's been watching you for a couple of weeks, asking questions about your article, about the development. I think they're trying to figure out how much you know. But I don't know anything. I hit a dead end with my research. They don't know that. And until they do, you're still at risk. Vincent leaned forward. Lily, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest. Did you make copies of your research? Notes, documents, anything that someone might want? She thought for a moment. I have a folder on my laptop with interview transcripts and some public records I pulled from the city database. Nothing secret or illegal. Why? Because if they think you have evidence of something, anything, they might try to get it. Where's your laptop now? In my apartment. On my desk. Lily's eyes widened. You think that's what they were looking for? Maybe. Or maybe they were planting something. Either way, we need to get it before they do. Vincent stood. I'm going back to your apartment tonight. Quietly, carefully. I'll get your laptop and anything else that might be important. I should come with you. I know where everything is. Absolutely not. It's too dangerous. Michael, it's my stuff. My life. I can't just hide here while you risk yourself for me. Lily stood too, her expression determined. Besides, you said it yourself. You need to know what I have. I can show you exactly what's on my laptop, what's worth taking and what's not. Vincent wanted to argue, but he could see the steel in her eyes. She was scared, but she wasn't helpless. And she was right. Having her there would make the operation faster, more efficient. Fine, he said finally. But you follow my instructions exactly. No arguments. No hesitation. If I tell you to run, you run. Understood? Understood. They left at midnight, taking Marco's car instead of the Escalade, something less conspicuous. Lily was quiet during the drive, staring out the window at the city lights. Vincent found himself watching her in the rearview mirror, this girl who'd stumbled into his life and somehow become the center of it in less than 24 hours. Can I ask you something? Lily said suddenly. And you don't have to answer if it's too personal. Go ahead. Why do you do this? The bodyguard thing. It seems like it would be easier to just, I don't know, have a normal job. Something that doesn't involve people trying to kill you. Vincent was quiet for a moment, choosing his words carefully. I do it because I'm good at it. Because I can make a difference. Keep people safe who can't protect themselves. And because, he paused, surprised by his own honesty. Because I've done things I'm not proud of. This feels like a way to balance the scales. Redemption, Lily said softly. Something like that. They reached her building just after 12:30. The street was quiet, most windows dark. Vincent parked 2 blocks away and did a careful reconnaissance before allowing Lily out of the car. Stay close, he murmured, leading her down the sidewalk. If anything feels wrong, we abort. But nothing felt wrong. The building was silent, the lobby empty. They took the stairs to the 2nd floor, Vincent checking each landing before proceeding. When they reached Lily's apartment, he saw the door was slightly ajar. He held up a hand, stopping Lily behind him, and drew his gun. She gasped softly, and he realized this was the first time she'd seen him armed. Too late to hide it now. Vincent pushed the door open slowly, sweeping the room with his weapon. The apartment was small, a studio with a kitchenette, a bed in one corner, a desk by the window, and it had been completely ransacked. Drawers pulled out, cushions slashed, books scattered across the floor. Someone had been thorough, destructive, looking for something, or sending a message. Maybe both. Oh my God, Lily whispered behind him. Vincent holstered his gun and turned to her. Stay in the doorway. Don't touch anything. He moved through the apartment methodically, checking closets and corners, making sure they were alone. When he was satisfied, he went to the desk. The laptop was gone. They took it, he said. Your computer. Anything else missing? Lily stepped inside, looking around at the destruction of her life. I can't tell. Everything's such a mess. Then her eyes landed on something, and she went very still. The photo, she said quietly. There was a photo on my nightstand, of me and my mom. It's gone. Vincent felt ice in his veins. Taking the laptop made sense. It was about information. But taking a personal photograph, that was about intimidation. About showing they could reach into her life, take pieces of it. We need to go, he said. Now. But as they turned to leave, Vincent's phone buzzed. Another text from the unknown number. This time it included a photo attachment. He opened it, and his blood ran cold. It was a picture of Angela, his sister, leaving Northwestern Memorial Hospital in her scrubs. She was smiling, talking to a colleague, completely unaware she was being photographed. The message below read, "Everyone has someone they care about. Remember that." Vincent stood in Lily's destroyed apartment, staring at the photo of his sister, and felt something break inside him. They'd found his weakness. They'd gone after the one person in the world he'd kill to protect, and they were telling him they could reach her anytime they wanted. "Michael?" Lily's voice seemed to come from very far away. "What is it? What's wrong?" Vincent looked up at her. This girl he'd lied to. This girl he was trying to save. This girl who'd somehow become tangled in the darkest parts of his life, and made a decision. "We need to go," he said again. "And then I need to tell you the truth." They drove in silence back to Oak Park, but Vincent didn't take them to the safe house. Instead, he pulled into the parking lot of a closed diner on Roosevelt Road, killed the engine, and sat staring through the windshield at nothing. Lily waited. She'd learned in the past day that Michael, if that was even his real name, didn't speak until he was ready, but she could feel the tension radiating off him like heat, could see the way his hands gripped the steering wheel hard enough to make his knuckles white. "My name isn't Michael," he said finally. "It's Vincent. Vincent Caruso." The name meant nothing to Lily. She waited for more. "I'm not a bodyguard. He paused, and she saw him struggling with something. "I'm the person who owns that development in Pilsen. The one you wrote about. I'm the person you were trying to expose." Lily felt the words hit her like physical blows. "What?" "I own it. Through shell companies, through layers of legal protection, but it's mine. And when you published that article, when you started asking questions about who was really behind it, someone decided you were a problem." Vincent finally turned to look at her, and his eyes were full of something that looked like agony. "The men who broke into your apartment. I sent them. Not to hurt you. I swear, not to hurt you. But to find out what you knew. To see if you were a threat." Lily couldn't breathe. The car felt too small. The air too thick. You sent them." "Yes. And then I got a text telling me to handle you, to make sure you stopped digging. So I came to your building to figure out what to do, and you ran out and thought I was your bodyguard. And He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture of frustration and despair. "I lied. I lied because in that moment, when you looked at me like I was someone who could save you instead of someone you should run from, I wanted to be that person. I wanted to be the hero instead of the villain." Lily's hand was on the door handle. She was going to get out, going to run, going to... "Wait." Vincent's voice was quiet, but urgent. "Please, just wait. Let me explain." "Explain what?" "That you've been lying to me since the moment we met. That I've been trusting the exact person who's trying to hurt me." Lily's voice was rising, hysteria creeping in. "Oh my God, I slept in your safe house. I drank coffee with you. I thanked you for protecting me. I am protecting you." Vincent turned in his seat to face her fully. "That's the truth, Lily. Everything else was a lie. But that part is real. Someone is using you to get to me, and I'm not going to let them hurt you. Why should I believe anything you say? Because if I wanted to hurt you, I've had a dozen chances. Because I pulled my own men out of your apartment when I realized what was happening. Because I just showed you a photo of my sister, the only person in the world I actually care about, and told you that someone is threatening her to control me." Vincent's voice was raw now, stripped of the smooth confidence she'd come to associate with him. "I'm telling you the truth because you deserve it, and because I need your help." Lily stared at him, her mind racing. Every instinct screamed at her to run, to get away from this man who'd admitted to being a criminal, to lying to her, to sending people to her apartment. But there was something in his eyes. Desperation? Yes, but also honesty. The kind of painful honesty that comes when someone has nothing left to lose. "Who are you?" she asked quietly. "Really?" Vincent took a breath. "I run a criminal organization in Chicago. Mostly legitimate businesses now. Real estate, import-export, investments. But the foundation was built on things I'm not proud of. Extortion, gambling, protection rackets. I've been trying to transition away from that, to build something clean that I can eventually walk away from. The Pilsen development was part of that. Legal, above board, profitable. But you displaced families, people who'd lived there for generations. I know. I didn't think about that when I approved the purchase. I just saw numbers on a spreadsheet. A good investment. I didn't see the people." He looked away. "I didn't see what you saw until I went there today. And you were right. In your article, you were right about all of it." Lily felt tears burning her eyes. "So what now? You've told me the truth, and now what? You can't just let me go. I know who you are. No, I can't let you go. Not because I want to keep you prisoner, but because whoever is threatening you, threatening both of us, they're still out there. They took your laptop, they took your photo, and they sent me a picture of my sister. They're escalating. Vincent pulled out his phone, showed her the image of the woman in scrubs. This is Angela. She's a nurse. She has no idea what I really do, thinks I'm just a businessman. She's innocent in all of this, just like you. And they're using her to make sure I cooperate. Cooperate with what? I don't know yet. They said they'd send instructions, that the thing with you was a test. But whoever they are, they've done their homework. They know about my organization, my businesses, my family. They know exactly how to hurt me. Vincent looked at her again. And I think they're planning to use you to do it. Lily's mind was reeling. 24 hours ago, her biggest worry had been finishing her thesis. Now she was sitting in a car with a criminal who'd lied to her, learning that she was a pawn in some kind of power play she didn't understand. I should go to the police, she said. But even as she said it, she knew how hollow it sounded. And tell them what? That a man you can't identify broke into your apartment? That you've been receiving threats you can't prove? That you're caught in the middle of a criminal conspiracy involving one of Chicago's most powerful organizations? Vincent shook his head. The police can't help you, Lily. They can't protect you from people who operate in the shadows. But I can. Why? Why would you protect me when I'm the one who wrote the article that started all this? Vincent was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was soft, almost wondering. Because when you looked at me outside your building, you saw someone worth trusting. And I haven't been that person in a very long time. Maybe I never was. But for one moment, I got to be the person you thought I was. And I don't want to give that up. Lily felt something shift inside her. She should be terrified. She was terrified. But she was also seeing something in Vincent Caruso that she suspected few people ever saw. Vulnerability, regret, a desperate desire to be better than he was. If I stay, she said slowly, if I let you keep protecting me, I need the truth, no more lies, about anything. Okay, and when this is over, when whoever is threatening us is dealt with, you let me go. No strings, no threats, no making me disappear because I know too much. Vincent nodded. You have my word, the word of a criminal, the word of a man who's trying to be better than he was. Vincent held out his hand. Deal? Lily looked at his hand for a long moment. This was insane. She was making a deal with a mob boss, trusting a man who'd admitted to lying to her, betting her life on the hope that he was telling the truth now. But what choice did she have? Someone had destroyed her apartment, stolen her things, was using her as leverage in a game she didn't understand. And Vincent Caruso, for all his lies and crimes, was offering her protection. More than that, he was offering her honesty. She took his hand. Deal. His grip was firm, warm, human. For a moment they sat there, hands clasped, and Lily felt the strangest sense of connection, like they'd just sealed something more important than a simple agreement. Vincent started the car. We need to move. The safe house in Oak Park is compromised. If they're watching me closely enough to photograph my sister, they probably know about all my properties. I have another place, farther out, more secure. Where? Better if you don't know until we get there. Less you know, less you can tell if... He didn't finish the sentence, but Lily understood. If they caught her, if they tortured her, if this all went wrong, they drove west, out of the city and into the suburbs, then beyond into rural Illinois. Lily watched the landscape change from urban to residential to agricultural, fields of harvested corn stretching out under a moon that was just past full. Tell me about your sister, she said, breaking the silence. Angela. Vincent's expression softened. She's 5 years younger than me. Raised her after our parents died. Our father when I was 25, our mother 2 years later. She doesn't know what I do. Thinks I'm a legitimate businessman. I've kept her separate from my world. Made sure she had a normal life. She's the best person I know. Does she know about me? I called her yesterday. Asked her to check if you came into the ER. Didn't tell her why. Vincent glanced at Lily. He's going to ask questions now. I'll have to tell her something. Tell her the truth. I can't. If she knows what I really am, it'll destroy her. She thinks I'm a good person. Maybe you are, Lily said quietly. Maybe you're just a good person who's done bad things. Vincent laughed, but there was no humor in it. That's a nice thought, but I don't think it works that way. They drove in silence for another 20 minutes, before Vincent turned onto a gravel road that wound through a stand of trees. At the end was a farmhouse, old but well-maintained, with a wraparound porch and lights glowing in the windows. This was my grandfather's place, Vincent said as they pulled up. He bought it in the 50s, used it as a retreat. When he died, it came to me. Nobody knows about it except Marco and Angela. And now me. And now you. Inside, the house was warm and surprisingly cozy. Hardwood floors, comfortable furniture, a stone fireplace with embers still glowing. Marco was there, along with 2 other men Lily didn't recognize. "Boss," Marco said, standing. "We've got a problem." Vincent's expression went cold and professional. "What kind of problem?" "The kind where someone just tried to grab your sister from the hospital parking lot." The world seemed to stop. Lily watched Vincent's face go white, then red, then settle into something that looked like carved stone. "Is she okay?" His voice was deadly calm. "She's fine." She fought back, made a scene, and they ran. "But Vincent," Marco hesitated. "She called me. She's scared and she's asking questions. She knows something's wrong." Vincent closed his eyes for a moment, and Lily saw him visibly gather himself. When he opened them again, he was back in control. "Bring her here. Now. Full security detail. And find out who tried to take her. Already on it. She'll be here in an hour." After Marco left to make the arrangements, Vincent stood at the window, staring out at the darkness. Lily approached carefully, like he was a wild animal that might bolt. "I'm sorry," she said. "This is my fault. If I hadn't written that article..." "This isn't your fault." Vincent's voice was flat. "You did your job. You told the truth. The people who are doing this, they're the ones at fault. And I'm going to find them. And I'm going to end this." There was something in his tone that made Lily shiver. This was Vincent Caruso, the criminal. The man who'd built an empire on violence and fear. This was the person he really was, under the lies and the attempts at redemption. "What are you going to do?" she asked. Vincent turned to look at her, and his eyes were cold as winter. "Whatever I have to." An hour later, a car pulled up and a woman burst through the door. She was petite, dark-haired, with Vincent's eyes and a fury that filled the room. "Vincent Michael Caruso, you are going to tell me what the hell is going on right now, or so help me." She stopped when she saw Lily. "Who's this?" "Angela, this is Lily." "Lily, my sister Angela." Vincent moved between them, protective. "And I'll explain everything. But first, I need to know you're okay. Did they hurt you?" "No, I'm fine. I kneed one of them in the balls and screamed until security came running." Angela's voice was shaking despite her bravado. "But Vincent, they knew my name. They said to tell you that you're running out of time. What does that mean? Running out of time for what?" Vincent looked at his sister, then at Lily, and Lily saw the moment he made his decision. "Sit down," he said to Angela. "Both of you. It's time I told you everything." And there, in his grandfather's farmhouse with his sister and a girl he'd known for barely a day, Vincent Caruso began to talk. He told them about his organization, about the empire he'd built, about the things he'd done and the things he regretted. He told them about the threats, about the mysterious caller, about the trap they were all caught in. Angela listened in silence, her face going through a dozen emotions: shock, disbelief, anger, fear, and finally, heartbreak. When Vincent finished, she stood up and slapped him across the face. The sound echoed in the quiet room. Vincent didn't move, didn't defend himself, just stood there and took it. "You lied to me," Angela said, and there were tears streaming down her face. "For years you lied to me. Let me think you were someone you're not. I know. I defended you to people who said you were shady. I told them my brother was a good man, an honest businessman. And all this time," she shook her head, "who are you? Because you're not the person I thought you were. I'm the person who raised you," Vincent said quietly, "who made sure you could go to college, become a nurse, have a life that wasn't touched by the things I did. I'm the person who loves you more than anything in this world. That part was never a lie." Angela looked at him for a long moment, then turned and walked out of the room. They heard a door slam upstairs. Vincent stood very still, and Lily saw something in his expression that broke her heart, the look of a man who'd just lost the thing he valued most. "She'll come around," Lily said softly, though she wasn't sure she believed it. "Maybe. Or maybe I just destroyed the last good relationship I had." Vincent moved to the fireplace, staring into the embers. "This is what I do, Lily. I destroy things. I take good things, and I corrupt them. And I tell myself it's necessary, that I'm protecting people. But really, I'm just spreading the poison." Lily went to him, stood beside him at the fireplace. "You're also the person who chose to protect me instead of hurting me. Who's trying to keep your sister safe. Who's fighting against people who are threatening innocent people. That counts for something." "Does it? Does it balance the scales?" I don't know. Maybe there are no scales. Maybe we're just people trying to do the best we can with the choices we're given. Vincent looked at her, really looked at her, and Lily saw something shift in his expression. How are you so calm about all this? I just told you I'm a criminal, that I've hurt people, killed people. You should be terrified. I am terrified, Lily admitted. But I'm also, I don't know. I'm seeing you. Not the bodyguard you pretended to be. Not the criminal you say you are. But the actual person. And that person is trying to protect people he cares about. That person is trying to be better. That's worth something. They stood there in the fireplace light, and Lily felt the strangest sense of intimacy. Like they'd known each other for years instead of hours. Like they'd been through a war together and come out the other side changed. Vincent's phone buzzed. He looked at it, and his expression went hard. What is it? Lily asked. Instructions. From whoever's been threatening us. He showed her the screen. They want me to meet them tomorrow night. Alone. They say if I don't come, they'll kill Angela. And then they'll kill you. Lily felt ice in her stomach. You can't go. It's obviously a trap. I don't have a choice. There's always a choice. Not this time. Vincent pocketed his phone. But I'm not going in blind. I have until tomorrow night to figure out who they are and what they want. And I'm going to use every resource I have to make sure I'm the one who walks away from that meeting. He looked at Lily, and she saw determination in his eyes, and something else, something that looked like hope. I'm going to fix this, he said. I'm going to keep you safe, keep Angela safe, and I'm going to end whoever is behind this. And then, he paused, and then maybe I can start being the person you seem to think I am. Lily reached out and took his hand. You already are, Vincent. You just don't see it yet. Outside, the wind picked up, rattling the windows of the old farmhouse. Somewhere in Chicago, someone was planning their next move, setting pieces on a board that Vincent and Lily couldn't see. But in that moment, standing together in the firelight, they were united by something stronger than fear. They were united by the desperate, fragile hope that even people who'd done terrible things could find redemption. And that sometimes, the person you needed to save you was the last person you'd ever expect. Vincent didn't sleep. He spent the night in the farmhouse's study, a room that had belonged to his grandfather, still filled with old books and the smell of pipe tobacco, making calls, gathering intelligence, preparing for war. By dawn, he had a name. Dmitry Volkov, Marco said, spreading photographs across the desk. Russian mob, based out of New York. He's been trying to expand into the Midwest for the past year, but he's been hitting resistance from established organizations, including ours. Vincent studied the photos. Volkov was in his 50s, silver-haired, with the kind of face that looked grandfatherly until you noticed the eyes. Cold, calculating, utterly without mercy. Why come after me specifically? Vincent asked. Because you're the biggest obstacle. You control the most territory, have the most political connections, and you're transitioning to legitimate business. If he can take you down, he can move in on your operations and use them as a foundation for his own expansion. Marco pointed to another photo. The man from the coffee shop, the one who'd been watching Lily. This is Alexei Petrov, one of Volkov's lieutenants. He's the one who's been orchestrating the surveillance, the threats, all of it. So Volkov manufactures a crisis involving Lily, forces me to expose myself or my operations, and then what? Takes over while I'm dealing with federal investigators, or kills you and takes over directly. Either way, he wins. Vincent leaned back in his chair, his mind racing through scenarios. The meeting tonight, it's going to be a trap. He'll either try to kill me or force me to do something that destroys my organization. Probably both. So, we don't go. We have to go. He has too much leverage. Angela, Lily, the threat of exposure. If I don't show, he'll follow through on his threats. Vincent stood, pacing. But we're not going to play by his rules. We're going to change the game. How? Vincent smiled, and it was the smile of a predator. By giving him what he wants, and then taking everything from him. Lily woke to find Angela sitting at the foot of her bed, watching her with an expression that was hard to read. Morning, Lily said cautiously, sitting up. He cares about you, Angela said without preamble. My brother. I can see it in the way he looks at you, the way he talks about you. I haven't seen him care about anyone like that since our mother died. Lily didn't know what to say to that. I barely know him. Maybe. But sometimes that's all it takes. One moment, One person, one choice that changes everything. Angela looked down at her hands. I've been up all night thinking about what he told us, about what he's done, who he really is. And I'm angry, and I'm hurt, and I feel betrayed. But I also know my brother. He's not a monster. He's just a man who made bad choices and kept making them because he thought it was the only way to protect the people he loved. That doesn't excuse what he's done. No, it doesn't. But it explains it, and maybe that's enough to start with. Angela looked up, and her eyes were red from crying. He's going to do something dangerous tonight, isn't he? To protect us. Lily nodded. He's meeting the people who've been threatening us. He thinks he can end this. He's going to get himself killed. Maybe. Or maybe he's going to win. He seems like the kind of person who usually wins. Angela laughed, but there was no humor in it. He does. He always has. But everyone's luck runs out eventually. She stood. I need to talk to him. Will you come with me? They found Vincent in the study, surrounded by maps and photographs and the tools of his trade. He looked up when they entered, and Lily saw the wariness in his eyes, like he was bracing for another blow. Angela, he started. Shut up, Angela said. I'm still furious with you. I'm still processing the fact that my brother is a criminal. But you're also the person who raised me, who sacrificed for me, who made sure I had opportunities you never did. So I'm going to say this once, and then we're never going to talk about it again. She crossed the room and hugged him, fierce and tight. Don't you dare die tonight. Don't you dare leave me alone in this world. Whatever you have to do, whoever you have to be, you come back. Understood? Vincent wrapped his arms around his sister, and Lily saw his eyes close, saw the relief and love and pain on his face. Understood. When Angela pulled back, she looked at Lily. Take care of him. I don't know why, but I think he listens to you. Make sure he doesn't do anything stupid. I'll try, Lily said, though she had no idea how she was supposed to control Vincent Caruso. After Angela left, Vincent turned to Lily. You should stay here tonight, with Angela and the security team. You'll be safe. No, Lily, no, she repeated. You're doing this because of me, because I wrote an article that started all of this. I'm not going to hide while you risk your life to clean up my mess. It's not your mess. It's mine. Everything that's happened is because of choices I made, an empire I built. You're just caught in the crossfire. Then let me help. I'm a journalist. I know how to research, how to find information, how to ask the right questions. Maybe I can see something you're missing. Vincent studied her for a long moment. Then he gestured to the desk. Fine. Tell me what you see. Lily moved to the desk, studying the photographs and documents spread across it. She saw Volkov, saw Petrov, saw surveillance photos and financial records and maps of Chicago with certain areas circled. And then she saw something else. This building, she said, pointing to one of the photographs. The one where you're supposed to meet Volkov tonight. I know it. Vincent came to stand beside her. How? I did a story on it last semester. It's an old warehouse in Bridgeport that's been abandoned for years. There was a proposal to turn it into artist lofts, but it fell through when the developer ran out of money. She looked up at him. But here's the thing. The building has a weird layout. It was originally a meatpacking facility, so there are multiple levels, cold storage rooms, a whole network of passages for moving product. If you go in through the front, you could easily get trapped. Vincent's eyes sharpened. But there are other ways in. At least 3 that I know of. I have photos from my research, floor plans from the city planning office. Lily pulled out her phone, then remembered. Except my laptop was stolen, and all my files were on it. But you backed up to the cloud, right? Student journalists always back up. Lily felt a surge of hope. Yes, I did. She logged into her cloud storage, pulled up the folder from her architecture story. Here, floor plans, photos, everything. Vincent studied the documents, and Lily saw his mind working, saw him calculating angles and approaches and possibilities. This changes everything, he said quietly. If we can get in through one of these side entrances, we can position people throughout the building. Volkov will think he has the advantage, but we'll control the space. We? Lily asked. Vincent looked at her, and she saw something in his expression that made her heart skip. You want to help? Then help. Come with me tonight. Be my eyes, my guide through that building. Help me end this. Vincent, I don't know how to fight. I'm not asking you to fight. I'm asking you to be brave, to trust me, to help me be the person you seem to think I can be. He took her hand. I can't do this without you, Lily. I need you. And there it was. The the truth that had been building between them since the moment they met. This wasn't just about protection anymore. It wasn't just about lies and threats and criminal empires. This was about two people who'd found each other in the darkness and decided to fight their way toward the light together. "Okay," Lily said. "I'll help you." The warehouse in Bridgeport looked even more ominous at night. It loomed against the Chicago skyline like a monument to decay, its broken windows like empty eyes, its walls covered in graffiti and rust. Vincent and Lily sat in a car 2 blocks away, watching the building through night vision binoculars. Marco and his team were already in position, having entered through the side entrances Lily had identified. They were spread throughout the building, hidden, waiting. "Volkov's people are inside." Marco's voice came through Vincent's earpiece. "I count 6, maybe 7. They're set up on the main floor, near the front entrance. Classic ambush formation. Any sign of Volkov himself? Not yet. He's probably waiting to make a grand entrance." Vincent lowered the binoculars and looked at Lily. She was pale but composed, wearing dark clothes and a bulletproof vest that Marco had insisted on. Last chance to back out. Not a chance. They exited the car and moved through the shadows toward the warehouse. Lily led them to a service entrance on the east side, a rusted door that looked like it hadn't been opened in years, but gave way with a hard shove. Inside, the warehouse was a maze of darkness and decay. The smell of old meat and mildew was overwhelming. Lily navigated by memory and the beam of her flashlight, leading Vincent through passages and around obstacles, up a metal staircase to a catwalk that overlooked the main floor. From there, they could see everything. Volkov's men were positioned exactly as Marco had described, 6 of them, armed, waiting. And in the center of the space, sitting in a chair like a king on a throne, was Dmitry Volkov himself. "Mr. Caruso," Volkov's voice echoed through the warehouse. "I know you're here. I can feel you watching. Why don't you come down and we can talk like civilized men?" Vincent touched his earpiece. "Everyone in position?" "Affirmative," Marco responded. Vincent stood, making himself visible on the catwalk. "I'm here, Volkov. Let's talk." Volkov looked up, smiling. "Ah, there you are. And you brought a friend, the journalist girl. How touching." His smile faded. "Come down, alone, or my men start shooting, and we see how many bullets that vest of hers can stop." Vincent looked at Lily. "Stay here. No matter what happens, stay here. Vincent, trust me." He descended the stairs, hands visible, moving with the careful precision of a man walking into a trap. When he reached the main floor, Volkov's men immediately surrounded him, patting him down, removing his gun. "There," Volkov said. "Now we can talk properly. Do you know why you're here, Mr. Caruso? Because you want my territory, my operations. You think if you take me out, you can move into Chicago. Partially correct, but it's more than that. You see, you represent something I despise, the old way of doing things. Honor among thieves, codes of conduct, this ridiculous notion that criminals can be gentlemen." Volkov stood, circling Vincent like a shark. "I'm the future, Mr. Caruso. I don't care about honor or codes. I care about power and profit, and I take what I want. And right now, I want everything you've built. So kill me." "Take it." "Oh, I will. But first, I want you to destroy it yourself. I want you to call your organization, tell them you're stepping down, that I'm taking over. I want you to hand me your empire on a silver platter, and then I'll kill you quickly, and I'll let the girl and your sister live. Refuse, and I'll make sure they suffer before they die." Vincent was quiet for a moment. Then he laughed, a genuine, amused laugh that echoed through the warehouse. "You really don't understand, do you?" Volkov's eyes narrowed. "Understand what? That you've already lost." Vincent raised his hand, and the warehouse exploded into motion. Marco and his team emerged from the shadows, weapons drawn, surrounding Volkov's men. Red laser sights painted targets on foreheads and chests. The ambush had been ambushed. "You see," Vincent said conversationally, "I've been in this business a long time, and the first rule is, never walk into a meeting without controlling the space. Thanks to Lily, I knew every entrance, every hiding spot, every angle in this building. Your men never stood a chance." Volkov's face went purple with rage. "Kill them! Kill them all!" But his men didn't move. They were professionals, and they knew when they were beaten. Slowly, they lowered their weapons. "It's over, Volkov," Vincent said. "You're going to leave Chicago. You're going to go back to New York, and you're never going to threaten me or mine again. And in exchange, I won't send the FBI the very detailed information I have about your operations. Information that would put you away for the rest of your life. You're bluffing." Vincent pulled out his phone, showed Volkov the screen. It was an email, ready to send, with attachments that clearly showed financial records, surveillance photos, witness statements. "Am I?" Volkov stared at the phone, then at Vincent, and Lily saw the moment he realized he'd lost. "This isn't over." "Yes," Vincent said quietly. "It is, because if you ever come near me, my sister, or Lily Morrison again, I won't call the FBI. I'll handle it myself, and I promise you, Volkov, you don't want that." There was something in Vincent's voice, something cold and absolutely certain, that made even Lily shiver. Volkov looked around at the guns pointed at him, at his men who'd surrendered, at the trap he'd walked into. Then he nodded slowly. "I'll leave Chicago. But remember, Caruso, in our world, there's always someone waiting to take your place. Always someone younger, hungrier, more ruthless. Your time is coming." "Maybe," Vincent said, "but not today." Marco and his team escorted Volkov and his men out of the warehouse. Vincent stood alone in the center of the space, and Lily saw him sag slightly, the adrenaline draining away. She climbed down from the catwalk and went to him. "You did it. It's over. For now." Vincent looked at her, and there was exhaustion in his eyes. But he was right about one thing. There's always someone else. This life, it doesn't end. It just keeps going until it kills you. "Then stop," Lily said. "You said you were trying to transition to legitimate business. So do it. Walk away from this world. Be the person you want to be instead of the person you've been. It's not that simple. Why not? You have money, connections, legitimate businesses. You could disappear, start over somewhere else. Take Angela. Take your life back." Vincent looked at her for a long moment. "And what about you? Where do you fit in this fantasy?" Lily felt her heart skip. I don't know. I'm just a journalism student who wrote an article. After tonight, I go back to my life, and you go back to yours. Is that what you want?" "I don't know what I want," Lily admitted. 3 days ago, I thought I knew exactly who I was and what I wanted. Now everything's different. You're different. I'm different." Vincent reached out, gently touching her face. "You saved my life tonight. You and your research. Your bravery. I couldn't have done this without you. You saved mine first, when you chose to protect me instead of hurting me." They stood there in the abandoned warehouse, surrounded by the remnants of violence and the promise of something new, and Lily felt the pull between them, this impossible, complicated connection that had formed in the space between lies and truth. "What happens now?" she asked. "Now," Vincent said. "We go home. We make sure Angela is safe. And then," he paused, "and then I figure out how to be the man you seem to think I am." "You already are," Lily said again. "You just have to choose it." Outside, sirens wailed in the distance. Marco appeared in the doorway. "Boss, we need to go. Police are responding to reports of gunfire." Vincent nodded, but he didn't move. He was looking at Lily like she was the answer to a question he'd been asking his whole life. "Come with me," he said suddenly. "Not just tonight, but after. Help me build something better. Use your journalism skills, your idealism, your belief that people can change. Help me prove that even someone like me can find redemption." Lily stared at him, shocked. "Vincent, I can't. I have school, my thesis, my whole life. I know it's crazy. But I also know that in the past 3 days, you've seen the worst of me, and still believed I could be better. That's not something I can walk away from. That's not someone I can walk away from." "Boss?" Marco called urgently. "Now." Vincent took Lily's hand. "You don't have to answer now. Just think about it. Please." And then they were running, out of the warehouse and into the night, leaving behind the violence and the threats and the old life that Vincent was trying so hard to escape. As they drove back to the farmhouse, Lily looked at Vincent's profile in the dashboard lights and wondered if it was possible, if a criminal could really change, if a girl from Boston could really help him do it, if something that started with lies could end with truth. She didn't have answers. But for the first time in 3 days, she had hope. And sometimes, hope was enough. 3 months later, Lily stood in the office of the Morrison Foundation, looking out at the Chicago skyline and marveling at how much had changed. The foundation occupied the top floor of a building in the West Loop, the same building that housed the headquarters of Caruso Enterprises, Vincent's newly restructured legitimate business empire. The office was bright and modern, with glass walls and exposed brick, nothing like the dark, secretive spaces she'd imagined when she first learned who Vincent really was. "The Peterson family just confirmed," Angela said, coming into the office with a tablet. "That's 15 families we've helped relocate or compensate for the Pilsen displacement. We're making a difference, Lily." Lily smiled at Vincent's sister, who'd become not just a colleague, but a friend. After that night at the farmhouse, Angela had made her choice: to forgive Vincent, to help him change, to be part of building something better. She'd taken a leave of absence from the hospital to help run the foundation, using her medical background to identify families in need. "We are," Lily agreed, "but there's still so much work to do." The Morrison Foundation, named after Lily, at Vincent's insistence, had been created to address the damage caused by the Pilsen development and others like it. They provided relocation assistance, legal aid, and compensation to families displaced by gentrification. It was Vincent's attempt at reparations, at using his wealth to undo some of the harm he'd caused. It was also Lily's new job. She'd taken a leave of absence from DePaul, postponing her degree to work on something that felt more important than any thesis. She was the foundation's director of community outreach, using her journalism skills to find the people who needed help and tell their stories. It wasn't the career she'd planned, but it was the one she'd chosen. "He's waiting for you," Angela said, nodding toward the door that connected to Vincent's office. The meeting with the city council went well. They're going to approve the affordable housing project. Lily felt a flutter of excitement. The housing project was Vincent's latest initiative, converting one of his properties into affordable units for low-income families. It was a small step, but it was progress. She found Vincent at his desk, tie loosened, sleeves rolled up, looking at architectural plans. He glanced up when she entered, and his face transformed, the hard, calculating expression softening into something warm and genuine. "Hey," he said. "How was your day?" "Productive. We helped 3 more families, and I finished the article for the Tribune." Lily had been writing a series of pieces about gentrification and community displacement, using her platform to shine a light on the issue. The Tribune had picked up the series, and it was getting national attention. "How was the council meeting?" "Better than expected. They're actually listening. Turns out when you stop trying to hide what you're doing and start being transparent, people are more willing to work with you." Vincent stood, coming around the desk. "Who knew?" Lily laughed. Imagine that. They'd fallen into an easy rhythm over the past 3 months. Vincent was systematically dismantling his criminal empire, selling off illegal operations, cutting ties with dangerous associates, building legitimate businesses in their place. It was slow, dangerous work. There were people who didn't want him to change, who saw his transformation as weakness or betrayal, but he was doing it. With Marco's help, with Angela's support, and with Lily's belief in him, he was becoming someone new. "I have something for you," Vincent said, pulling a folder from his desk. "Your apartment. I bought the building, and I'm giving you the deed to your unit, free and clear. It's the least I can do after what happened." Lily took the folder, overwhelmed. "Vincent, I can't accept this." "Yes, you can. Consider it back payment for all the rent you should have been charging me for living in your head these past 3 months. He smiled. "Besides, you need a place to live. The farmhouse is great, but you can't commute from there forever." Lily had been staying at the farmhouse, in the room that had become hers that first night. It had seemed temporary at first, but somehow it had become home. She'd wake up to the smell of coffee, find Vincent already working in the study, spend evenings talking with him and Angela about the foundation, about the future, about everything and nothing. It was domestic and strange, and wonderful. "Thank you," she said quietly, "for this, and for everything else. I should be thanking you. You gave me a reason to change, a reason to believe I could be better." Vincent reached out, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. "I don't know what I did to deserve you walking into my life, but I'm grateful for it every day." Lily felt her breath catch. Over the past 3 months, their relationship had evolved into something she couldn't quite name. It wasn't romantic. They'd both been too focused on the work, on the transformation, on building something meaningful. But it was intimate in a way that went deeper than romance. It was partnership, trust, understanding. It was the foundation for something that could become more, if they let it. "Vincent," she started, but was interrupted by Marco bursting through the door. "We have a problem," he said, his expression grim. "Volkov's dead, killed in New York last night. and his organization is blaming you." Vincent's expression went cold and professional. Details. He was shot outside his club. Professional hit. And someone left a message saying it was payback from Chicago. Marco looked at Lily, then back at Vincent. "Boss, this could start a war. If the Russians think you ordered the hit." "I didn't." Vincent was already moving, grabbing his jacket. "Which means someone's trying to frame me, trying to pull me back into that world." He looked at Lily. "I have to handle this. Stay here with Angela. Stay safe." "No," Lily said. "We do this together. That's what partners do." Vincent started to argue, then stopped. He looked at her, really looked at her, and Lily saw the moment he understood. She wasn't the scared girl who'd run out of her apartment 3 months ago. She'd changed too, become stronger, braver, more certain of who she was and what she wanted. "Okay," he said. "Together." The next 72 hours were a blur. Vincent reached out to his contacts in New York, in the FBI, in the Russian community. He provided alibis, phone records, proof that he'd been in Chicago when Volkov was killed. He offered to cooperate with the investigation, to share information about Volkov's organization. And slowly, the truth emerged. The hit had been ordered by one of Volkov's own lieutenants, a man who'd seen Vincent's transformation and decided to use it as cover for his own power play. He'd killed Volkov, blamed Vincent, and planned to take over while everyone was distracted by the conflict. It hadn't worked. Vincent's cooperation with law enforcement, his transparent business dealings, his documented transformation, it all provided clear evidence of his innocence. The real killer was arrested, and the threat of war evaporated. But the incident had shaken Vincent. Lily could see it in the way he moved, the way he looked over his shoulder, the way he held himself apart even when they were together. "You're thinking about leaving," she said one night at the farmhouse. They were sitting on the porch, watching fireflies dance in the darkness, going somewhere else, starting over where your past can't find you. Vincent was quiet for a long moment. "I thought about it. There are places I could go, identities I could take. I have enough money to disappear completely." He looked at her. "But I'd have to leave everything behind. The foundation, the businesses, Angela, you. Would that be so bad? Starting fresh? It would be running. And I'm tired of running. From my past, from my choices, from the person I used to be." Vincent turned to face her fully. "I want to stay. I want to keep building what we've started. I want to prove that people can change, that redemption is possible. But I also know that my past is always going to be there, always going to threaten the people I care about. And I don't know if I have the right to ask you to live with that." Lily reached out, taking his hand. "Vincent, I knew what I was signing up for when I agreed to help you. I knew your past wouldn't just disappear, but I also know who you are now. Not who you were, but who you're choosing to be every single day. And that person is worth believing in. Even when it's dangerous? Even when people like Volkov's lieutenant try to drag me back? Especially then, because that's when it matters most. When you have every reason to go back to your old life, and you choose not to." Lily squeezed his hand. "You're not alone in this, Vincent. You have Angela, you have Marco, you have me. We're all choosing to believe in you, to help you build something better. You don't have to carry this by yourself." Vincent looked at their joined hands, then up at her face. "I love you," he said quietly. "I don't know when it happened. Maybe that first night when you looked at me like I was a hero, or maybe gradually over these past months. But I love you, Lily Morrison. And I don't want to imagine my life without you in it." Lily felt tears spring to her eyes. "I love you too, even though it's crazy, even though we barely know each other, even though this whole thing started with lies. I love who you are and who you're trying to be." Vincent pulled her close, and they sat there on the porch as the night deepened around them. Two people who'd found each other in the darkness and chosen to walk toward the light together. 6 months later, Lily stood in the same spot on the porch, but everything had changed. The farmhouse had been renovated, transformed from a safe house into a home. There were flowers in the garden, new furniture in the living room, photographs on the walls, Vincent and Angela as children, Lily at her college graduation, the three of them at the foundation's opening ceremony. Inside, Angela was cooking dinner, singing along to music from the kitchen. Marco was there too, having become as much family as employee. He and Angela had started dating, much to Vincent's amused approval, and Vincent was beside Lily, his arm around her waist, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of gold and crimson. "The Tribune called," Lily said. "They want to do a feature on the foundation. A full spread, including interviews with the families we've helped. What did you tell them?" I said yes. It's time people knew the whole story. Not just about gentrification, but about what happens when people choose to make things right. She looked up at him. "Are you okay with that? With the publicity?" "I'm okay with it. I'm done hiding." Vincent kissed the top of her head. "Besides, I have a good publicist now. Someone who knows how to tell a story." Lily laughed. She'd gone back to school part-time, was finishing her degree while working at the foundation. Her thesis had evolved into something new, a study of redemption, of how communities heal, of the possibility of change. It was personal and professional, academic and emotional. It was her story, their story. "I got an email from my father," she said quietly. "He saw one of my articles. He wants to meet, to talk. He said he's proud of me." "Are you going to see him?" "I think so. It's been 2 years. Maybe it's time to forgive, to move forward." She smiled. "Someone taught me that people can change, that it's never too late to be better." Sounds like a smart person. He is, most of the time. They stood there as the sun sank below the horizon, painting the world in twilight. Inside, Angela called that dinner was ready. Marco's laugh echoed through the house. The smell of home cooking drifted out to the porch. "Is this what you imagined?" Lily asked. "When you decided to change, is this what you thought your life would look like?" Vincent was quiet for a moment, considering. "No," he said finally. "I thought redemption would be harder, lonelier. I thought I'd have to give up everything to become someone better. But instead," he gestured to the house, to the life they'd built. "Instead, I found this. Found you. Found a family I didn't know I needed. No regrets. Only that I didn't start sooner. That I wasted so many years being someone I'm not proud of." Vincent turned to face her, taking both her hands. "But I can't regret the path that led me to you. Even the mistakes, even the lies, even that night when you ran out of your apartment and thought I was your bodyguard. Because all of it brought me here, to this moment, to this life." Lily felt tears in her eyes. "I used to think journalism was about exposing the truth, about finding the story and telling it no matter what. But you taught me that sometimes the truth is more complicated than that. Sometimes the story isn't about who someone was, but who they choose to become." "And what's my story?" Vincent asked softly. "It's still being written. But so far, it's about a man who had everything and gave it up for something better, who chose love over power, redemption over reputation, hope over fear." Lily reached up, touching his face. "It's about a man who was mistaken for a bodyguard and decided to become one, not just for me, but for everyone he'd hurt, everyone he wanted to protect. It's about second chances and new beginnings, and the possibility that even people who've done terrible things can find their way home." Vincent kissed her then, soft and sweet and full of promise. And Lily thought about that night 6 months ago, about the scared girl who'd run out of her apartment and grabbed onto a stranger, about the criminal who'd chosen to protect instead of destroy, about the lie that had somehow become the truest thing in both their lives. "Come on," Vincent said, pulling back and smiling. "Angela will kill us if we let dinner get cold." They went inside together, into the warmth and light and laughter of the home they'd built. Behind them, the last rays of sunset faded into darkness, but inside, everything was bright. Vincent Caruso had spent most of his life in the shadows, building an empire on secrets and fear, but he'd learned something in the past 6 months, something Lily had taught him without even trying, that the bravest thing you can do is step into the light, that redemption isn't about erasing your past, but about choosing your future, that sometimes the person you're meant to save is yourself, and that love, real, honest, transformative love, can turn even the darkest story into something beautiful. As they sat down to dinner with Angela and Marco, as they laughed and talked and planned for tomorrow, Vincent looked around the table and felt something he hadn't felt in years: peace. He'd been mistaken for a bodyguard, and in trying to live up to that lie, he'd become something better: a protector, a partner, a man worthy of the trust Lily had placed in him that first night. He'd given up everything to keep her safe, and in return, she'd given him something he'd never thought possible: a second chance, a new life, a home. Thank you so much for listening to this story. If you enjoyed Vincent and Lily's journey from darkness to redemption, Please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel so you never miss another story. I'd love to hear from you in the comments. What was your favorite moment? Do you believe people can truly change? And where in the world are you listening from? Your support means everything, and I can't wait to share more stories with you soon.